Hello YouTube, it is me, Duncan Casey, back once again with another episode of Troping Mechanism, the show in which we talk about tropes in movies that are typical of an era or genre, and we discuss perhaps why they are that way, and perhaps what they are that way. That doesn't make sense.
What they are that way?
On my left is my co-host and sequesterer of files from the Clinton administration.
That's true. That's right.
Mr. Richard Jackson.
Hi. That's the thing that I did. We don't talk about it so much.
Words. So, today we are discussing dumb villains, but not quite what you think. Not the whole, like, you could have shot him, but you put him through a planned thing. It's there's two aspects to this. The first aspect that we're going to get into is the trope that still seems very much alive and well, which is that trope of building a dramatic tension after a fight or a gunfight or something like that. When the hero looks like he's down for the count, he's on the ground, the villain's got the gun pointed at him, and then as if from nowhere, someone off screen shoots said villain, and they get taken out, and they come in, and you'd forgotten about that.
Also, there's a fake out gunshot, so you think the villain shot the hero, and then the villain goes, "And I'm dead now." It was over.
Yeah. So yes. So that isn't a trope that I think has really gone. I mean, I think it came about. When would you say?
It seemed to have a real heyday in the 90s, didn't it? I'm trying to think of some examples, but like that thing of like pointing the gun and bang, and then they fall over.
Well, Under Siege, for example, you've got Casey Ryback's lying on the ground. Cole Meany walks up after that ridiculous edit. That, like, I've no idea where that came from. And he's like, "You're mine now, Ryback," and then he gets shot in the back by Playboy model with short hair, whatever.
Does that not happen in Judge Dredd as well, when Hershey's fighting what's her name, Lady Villain? Doesn't like she just gets shot in the back? I can't. It's what's something Chen. I can't remember her name, but
doesn't Fergie take her out? Or is that,
Dredd maybe just shoots her in the back. I can't remember.
It's been so long.
I watch it all the time. It's my favourite film. It's my favourite.
Yeah, could very well be. It's very much a thing that, I mean, it's true in TV shows. I mean, like we discussed before, my wife and I are going through 24 at the moment, and that it happens constantly.
Once an hour for 24 hours.
Yeah.
24 people died today.
Oh yeah, a lot more died. Yeah, it's a thing that has gone on. I mean, in terms of movie examples, I mean, it's so prevalent, right? I mean, it became, I think, and it still is to a large extent. There was a film I watched recently with I think it was Samuel L. Jackson, and it's one of those John. Well, I saw the end of it. My wife was watching it. It's a terrible movie. She has this knack. She's this radar for finding shit that I have no idea.
Yeah, she should send me some recos once a week.
Yeah,
I like
those.
Yeah.
For
WhatsApp me a list of shite to watch. That'd be great.
But it was just a by the numbers thing, and then right at the end of it, of course, I'm sure it happened in The Predator. Didn't it? It must have done.
I've kind of blanked The Predator out, like some kind of faint abuse memory.
Yeah.
I just say, maybe, I don't know, so much dumb shit happened in The Predator that I can't really keep track of it.
But yeah, I mean, it's a well-worn... it kind of does with the dogs, doesn't it? Doesn't the kid's about to get eaten by the dog, and then Dad, what's his name?
I keep
calling him McCready, but that's not
McCready. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I kind of feel like it almost comes from like it's borderline vaudevillian, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Almost like it almost feels like a silent movie thing in that it's so kind of physical and theatrical. And when I think of silent movies, I just think of like I don't want to veer this off topic, but you know, like the kind of, and this is a really hoary old thing with the kind of Rube Goldberg machine death. That like that's what Austin Powers took the piss out of with that agitated sea bass and slow moving platforms and stuff like that.
Yeah, sure.
And it's sort of like no one ever shoots anyone in the head, and it's this thing of I think the old kind of silent movie vaudeville thing is like when you tie someone to a train track and just walk away, just walk off.
Right.
Which Venture Brothers just did a riff on this week, but like it's just this sort of thing. Like no, I kind of I'm not. Well, I like to think I'm not a psychopath, but it's like if I was in such a situation where I would need to kill someone,
yeah,
probably good old shot in the face, thanks.
But yeah, I mean, I suppose it's that thing of visually setting up tension. So yeah, exactly like you say, literally the machine of death, whatever that is.
Yeah.
You see, you know, it's all clearly laid out. Like the cogs are this, and they will turn that way. I mean, the Batman '66 stuff.
Yeah, and
was full of that.
Did you ever play Monkey Island 2?
No.
There's a bit where LeChuck has you hanging over like a pit of boiling acid, and the joke is it's this insanely elaborate thing about how when the candle burns the rope, it drops the weight onto the blended
Right, mousetrap.
The mousetrap style.
Yeah.
You know, the kind of pointlessly elaborate thing. It's also, again, don't want to veer off this too much, but if a large person comes into my house and tries to kill me, and I get the upper hand and they're lying face down on my floor, what I'd probably do for the purpose of efficiency is with one hand I would dial 999 and put it on speaker, and with the other hand I'd use the weapon that I'd use to get that person on the floor to stove their head in. Because people just walk away and they come back, and it's like, yeah, no, I would pulverise that person's head or repeatedly shoot them in the head.
Yeah, there's the repeat thing. It's the Michael Myers, like,
yeah,
you know,
dude, just like, I mean,
the body's gone, like, you know.
Yeah, I know, because you didn't kill him, fucking, you pile of cretins. It's like, so it's kind of, and then the kind of getting shot off screen comes from the you know, the Mexican standoff thing. You know, because it's not even a Mexican standoff, really. It's kind of just held at gunpoint, isn't it?
Well, it's that thing of like, there's no way out, there's no escape. But it's just a very you know, it's a very lazy way of telling a story. And I suppose what tends to happen is that I doubt much of it is scripted these days. I think it's probably a case of we need to find a resolution to this fight. How are we going to do it with some dramatic tension so that you think the hero's done and then, you know, gets saved. I mean, another extension of this trope is when insert Walton Goggins, for example, in Predators, your favourite movie ever,
best film ever made,
has seemingly been killed and then comes back from the dead, effectively to take it. You know, when you think you discount him, and then suddenly from off screen here he comes.
Mario Van Peebles in Jaws: The Return,
or that, yeah. Michael,
it's hot under a sea for an hour.
yeah. Oh god.
But you know, there's some. You know, I did sort of. I won't call it research, but you know, I've been thinking about this, and you know, we've started with a topic, but I think it's already digressive. But fuck it. So like in Age of Ultron, I think it's it must be in Age of Ultron. Like Iron Man says to Ultron, like, "What's vibranium for?" And he goes like, "Oh well, you're just here in time for me to explain my evil plan," and then shoots him.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, reflexive and stuff.
Sure.
Right? It's a bit on the nose, but like one of the points of Watchmen's ending, and you know, how dare we speak about Watchmen again, but fuck it. Like the reason it's so effective is it's a kind of insane Lex Luthor plan. You know, it's got this insane. I'm talking about the book here, not the film. It's got this insane kind of sci-fi premise that he's actually pulled off. The consequences of which are completely grotesque and awful, and it's an act essentially of genocide. And you see it because, you know, Lex Luthor, we've talked about this stuff and never pulled it off, whatever.
Right.
But the whole scene is Dan explains it. He explains it to Dan, like, as the man just lays the whole thing out, and he's like, "Well, I'm going to stop you now," and he just goes, "I told you because I've done it."
Yeah.
There's no way I would tell you this if I hadn't already done it.
Yeah.
Here's the result. So that's a kind of nice self-aware. And that's that kind of... The tension in the Venture Brothers is between sort of like these kind of insane kind of Silver Age plans and then what that actually means, and that's played for comic effect. Whereas in Watchmen, it's the tension between the kind of mad Silver Age plan versus reality. And the reality of someone actually pulling off what they're talking about is absolutely horrific.
Yeah.
It's worse than like... Joker gasses a room full of people to death. Like that is pretty bad, but like in Watchmen you see blood and guts and death all over the streets of New York and stuff, and it's really, those kind of panels are really kind of you know, graphic and kind of silent. And the point is he's self-aware enough that he can, you know, that I've already done it.
Yeah.
But no one seems to have really learned a lesson from that, in that it still kind of goes on. Like, I'm explain my plan,
including the film itself. I mean, I suppose, part of it as well is the monologuing thing, which is, you know, obviously The Incredibles brought up as well, which is that thing of, and this plays into this trope as well, where quite often the villain will have think they have the upper hand and stand there and relay all the fucking which gives whoever it is enough time to catch up and shoot them, right? But it's I just think it's. I suppose what it's become. I don't know. I couldn't tell you what the first instance of that ever happening was.
Oh, mate, you would have to go all the way back. Like that's probably comes from. I imagine even comes from fucking theatre.
Oh yeah, but I mean in film, I mean you'd have to walk it back to Christ knows what. I mean what.
I do silent film probably.
Yeah, I guess so.
Probably as soon as there's, you know, one thing I read somewhere. I can't remember where I read this. That as soon as humans find a way to depict anything, they use it to depict fucking. So like cave paintings are all of dicks and stuff like that. Yeah. And I think as soon as they've got over that, the next thing down the list is villains explaining themselves. Straight from sex, death to monologues by villains. Just like that's the third tier down on the cave painting. You know what I mean? Some dude with a mustache giving a monologue.
But I mean, it's just. I suppose it's done for dramatic effect. I mean, is what it is. But I suppose it's odd how filmmakers have not gotten off it. Like it seems like they have seen this as just what you do. It seems to have become it's almost like the Wilhelm scream of the end of a fight. You know, it's just like that.
Well, and I think sort of because the thing is, again, Watchmen does it in kind of a clever way to devastating effect. Whereas I'd argue, so it's kind of cool when it happens in Ultron, but it's become a crutch to sort of do it, but then go, yeah, but we know we're doing it. And it's like, yeah, but you're still ultimately doing it. Like, you know, I mean, unless you've got a real, I'd say Watchmen twists it on its ear in a good way, but ultimately you're still doing it. So just kind of winking at the audience after you've done it doesn't make it any better necessarily.
Yeah.
And Ultron doesn't actually explain his plan, but it's a very Joss Whedon-y kind of like, ooh, evil plans. Bleh.
Well, that's the thing, is when the parody becomes the parodied. And but I mean, but the sort of thing, the trope of getting shot from off camera and stuff like that, I mean, that still seems to be the go-to get out for filmmakers now, of like how we resolve a fight, how we resolve a situation, it's how that happens. You know, it's like there never seems to be another conclusion to any kind of gunfight or.
So even if like the kind of human bad guy in a kind of monster creature horror thing's holding the good guys at gunpoint, the monster gets him.
Yeah, I suppose it's that thing as well of like it used to be like in a big budget film you'd have a big set piece. A similar thing happens. I always end up referencing James Bond, but I mean a similar thing happens in GoldenEye where he gets him a gunpoint, but James Bond kicks a ladder and goes down. You know, so it's like, all right, he doesn't get saved from off screen, but he does it. But,
oh fuck! You know what? It straight up happens in Dredd, as in the Carl Urban Dredd, doesn't it? It's like wait for what?
Oh yeah,
wait for her to shoot you, which is capped up with a great kind of Dredd one-liner, but it is that,
which is sort of knowing in a way, you know, because he says wait for her to shoot you,
and that tees up to a very kind of John Wagner-y bit of Dredd dialogue in that, you know, wait for her to shoot you and stuff, but it is ultimately the same thing. You know, the kind of, it's not really Deus Ex Machina. It's your Alex Garland link there, but it's of a similar ilk where someone kind of just trots out and just, you know, shoots the person in the back or whatever.
Yeah, and I suppose it's especially in that instance, it's sort of reverse dramatic irony in that, you know, the audience is sat there. In that, I mean, it's used well in that particular example because he has been shot. You know, he's like it really is in a bad way, and you think, fuck, like, you know, that's. But yeah, the way they get out of it is that tired old cliche of like, oh, she's, and it's like, what's the other person doing? Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're just standing there waiting for the villain to finish.
Wait sort of to say something that would then have a good sort of tie-up comedically. I don't know who that... It's sort of like later on when they're sat in the break room. It'd be like, do you remember that time when the dude... And I waited and you said the... and then I... Fuck, that was good, wasn't it? Yeah. Was that good? Oh, man.
It's weird. It's very weird. But it is a... There we are. I mean, it is a thing that still goes on. And I've no doubt it shows no sort of sign of letting up. But... there we are. That's the trope. So the other trope we wanted to discuss today, which is part of this.
I plan to get caught all alive.
Exactly. And now this is a much more recent. I mean, it is a thing that's existed for a long time.
I think it's the Dark Knight foregrounded it massively, and there was such an elaborate plan and stuff, and you know everybody watched that film. It smashed at the box office and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But the Joker's plan, and then. You know, hey, look, I'm not really a Bond fan, but I did really enjoy Skyfall, and it's the same thing. And it's like, not only did I get, and Star Trek Into Darkness does it as well.
Yeah,
with John Harrison or whatever. He's definitely not Khan. Just so we're all clear, no spoilers.
Not Khan Harrison.
Fuck's sake. Not Montalban, more like. I find those quite funny because they are, particularly because if you look at the plans, they're really broken and rely on coincidence and people just doing what you want them to.
That's, yeah. That's it's designed to make the villains seem omnipresent and omnipotent in a way, because there's aspects of what they've done where you go, well, they couldn't possibly have done that, and you go, but so it sort of gives you that. I guess in the cinema gives you a moment, but like when you really think about it,
it's real kind of. And I think with the Joker's plan, it took maybe a few months after it was released. It's like everyone collectively just went, wait a minute. Hold on. So he does that whole, when he goes to see Harvey Dent, he does that whole speech about like, I'm not a schemer, people make plans, and look where it gets you. And it's like, no, I don't plan. It's like, but I know you don't have an overarching plan and that's a philosophical thing, but if I was to reduce that down, you're a very good strategist and quite a wonderful planner. I
think his thing, because he calls himself an agent of chaos, doesn't he? And I suppose part of it is you can accept it as like, one of the things that he's very clearly shown to do is to lie and say bullshit all the time.
Well, that's it. Yeah,
so
unpredictable.
So I suppose that you take what he says there with a pinch of salt, but also, a lot of his planning and scheming kind of you got to take it that he could be happy to fail at any point. But it's that kind of thing. It's like sewing an explosive cell phone into a fat man. Like, and just as long as you get caught at the same time as him, somehow that gets you. Like when he sets off that bomb, it kills everyone around him except him, even the guy he's holding at knife point. Unless maybe
because that's just kind of a smash cut to him with his head out the police car, isn't it? And
well, there's a shot of him standing there with all the paper flying around him in the room, and like everyone else has gone down.
And it's that strange thing in the Nolan Batman films of like horrible carnage being bloodless.
Yeah,
because he'd be covered in guts. Like it's just like you blew up a fat guy.
Yeah.
Like, that motherfucker. That wasn't Stan Laurel, motherfucker. That was Ollie Hardy that you just blew up.
Yeah.
Stitches. Because isn't it like the thing in? Doesn't Silver's plan really hinge on a tube train coming at the right time?
Well, there's that. Like, it also hinges on getting put in a very specific place. Why his little prison cell thing has then a hatch that goes right down into the tube system in it, I don't know. But you can
shit planning from MI6.
Yeah, well, you can go, all right, well, that was an old room that
I
had.
He would know because he's been an agent.
Yeah, you've got to assume that. But yeah, so it relies on Q doing a very specific thing with his laptop and plugging it into the MI6 mainframe, and it all happening like he's literally. There's shots of him getting ready to leave, essentially, and the guy goes going somewhere, and it's like because he knows that's what. He knows all the processes so well that he knows Q's going to plug the laptop in right then, and then it's all going, and they're going to bring up the map, and they're going to do all that shit, and then it's it's weird. But yeah, more egregiously is that whole like, I know that James Bond's going to chase me. He's going to catch me right here when I'm climbing up a ladder, and I'm gonna and it's going to be at this time when the tube's coming. And I'm going to blow a hole in the wall, and also
because they know you so well. That shit.
I mean, but I love it in that it's sort of like, look, it's a Bondian thing. It's over the top and it's silly. Another weird thing they do in that is when Silver, it's before that when he comes out when he's escaped him on the. Is it then? Yeah, it's then. Sorry, he comes out. Doesn't he come out of like embankment and then your camera pulls around and you can see like houses apart?
Yeah.
It's like completely wrong geographically, but it's that example. The frustrating thing is when you know how a film is made and you know how something's structured, and I know certainly with things like that film and a lot of films start shooting before and they have a fluid script, shall we say?
Yeah.
But when you watch a story play out, you go like, it almost feels like the filmmakers have got to that point and gone, like literally as they're filming, but you can't. That's not how films are made. Films are made in totally indifferent ways. Like,
well, that level as well.
Yeah,
it should be, because the thing is, and these are all examples. Well, Star Trek Into Darkness not so much, because I generally just didn't like it. But The Dark Knight and Skyfall, and again, I can't underline how much of a non-Bond fan I am. I don't hate them or anything, but like, I was totally taken along for the ride. And on the night, I ended up buying it as well. Like, I fucking enjoyed it. It was a great film. It's fun, modern kind of action thing. Same with Batman as well. I just watched it, enjoyed it, and I was so floored by its portrayal of the characters and stuff. I didn't really question how bullshit the plan was. Until afterwards, and there's all articles on the internet, and it's like, hold on, it really depends on people behaving exactly how he needs them to.
I think The Dark Knight gets a pass in that the Joker is that character that, much like Batman, needs to appear to be able to do the impossible. You know what I mean? And whether it's strategy and planning or whether it's pure
he
luck.
is Batman's opposite number, isn't he?
Yeah,
that's the thing. I mean, and that's what's because you know, the good guy dresses in black and the bad guy dresses as a clown, and it's the complete, and that's why their relationship's so difficult, because he won't ever kill him, but he'll keep killing, and he's therefore responsible for deaths by owed to his inaction, and blah 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 blah.
And when you go into the whole Batman's quite a who was it who said Batman's a fascist? Or
Alan Moore.
Alan Moore. It's like when you go into that way of thinking about Batman, there's an even finer line between him and the Joker, and like, you know, in terms of like Batman really believes he can control everything to the point where he's, you know, he like mentally can't handle it when stuff doesn't
he's like torturing and abusing criminals, and that if you accept that as a morally virtuous action, it's like, well, then you don't accept our current system of justice. You think just some guy should be able to go out and break someone's legs and shit. Which plays into a power fantasy and a revenge fantasy, and bad people should be punished, which is something that people tend to think innately or whatever.
Sure.
Going back to Star Trek Into Darkness, have you seen Star Trek Into Darkness?
Yeah, I have it.
Oh, you got it. Okay, cool. So like, John Harrison, not Khan's plan is to get caught because he totally banks on the fact, keeping in mind that he's never met Kirk before. His and all of his crew, the crew of the Botany Bay, have all been put inside missiles. And he is 100% banking on the fact that Kirk is not just going to do what he's told, because Kirk's been told to go to a place and fire some missiles at a place, and Kirk thinks that that's, you know, it's going to start a war, it's a bad idea. But, you know, Khan has no idea that Kirk's not just some kind of crazy war-thirsty nutter.
Well, hasn't Khan been frozen for a long time as well, so he doesn't know who...
Well, but he's been, in this continuity, he's been... kind of kidnapped by Admiral Marcus and forced to build weapons.
Right.
So he might have, but he never says like, "Oh, I know who you are." Like, he never goes there, and he's totally banking on the fact that Kirk doesn't just blow up all of his crew with these missiles, or you know, they end up opening one by accident. Yeah. So it's the whole thing of getting caught and then sort of like just hoping he doesn't blow up your whole crew, which apparently is the most precious thing to you in the world. Even though we never, because like in the original episode that's based on, you see he talks about his career philosophizers and stuff, and Ricardo Montalban does all this shit. Like, all John Harrison does is go, "I'm angry and I've got a plan and I'm going to get caught," and it's just so weak. But again, he totally hinges on him assuming that people are going to do what he wants.
And then his plan is, isn't it, just to crash that big ship into the Federation
tower? That is what happens, but it's not really his plan. His plan is to go and he wants to go and, I think he's trying to seek asylum with the Klingons. I can't remember, but I can't remember because I don't like it and don't like to think about it.
I haven't watched it in a long time, but I, you know, as someone who hasn't seen The Wrath of Khan and isn't a Trekkie, but respects it very much so, I enjoyed it as a big, dumb, flashy sci-fi thing, but I fully accept that.
I think my main problem with it is because I kind of dig the first J.J. Abrams Trek, because it's a nice tight story, and like
the third one was alright as well.
Yeah, it's alright. It's alright. Wrath of Khan is dog shit. No, sorry.
Into Darkness.
Into Darkness is dog shit, and mostly because it's a big bloated mess. And that, when I look at like Dark Knight and the Joker's plan not making sense, I'm kind of alright with it because it's so tightly wound, and that's kind of like a thrill ride. And I think Skyfall gets away with similar stuff. It was clearly looking at the Dark Knight, but it, you know, it's a thrilling enough thing whilst it's happening that you kind of don't question it. Whereas Into Darkness is really kind of bloated and leaden, and it's just sort of like, well, I can see this doesn't make sense because I'm not enjoying myself, and it doesn't really follow any kind of structure. And I think when it's used as I think when it's used as a trope to demonstrate a villain's, certainly in The Dark Knight and certainly in Skyfall, it's used as an unsettling tactic to say like, oh fuck, like this guy isn't just straight up a guy you need to go and catch, and it's like he has got way more than you realise. You are way less safe than you thought. You're totally out of your depth. So it's kind of like it in a way doesn't matter if when you think about it you go, hang on, like that's but it's not the point. The point was to make you think, oh shit, and that's why obviously Skyfall ends in a very kind of, I think it's brilliant because there's themes in that. I don't know that it was right to do at that point in James Bond's career, because bearing in mind we just had him sort of be established as the new Bond. It said that should have been the first one, because it did all that. Not the first, but instead of Casino Royale, they should have done that first. I guess, but in a way, yeah. Because the trouble is, you kind of go. There's lots of themes of like you're too old, like there are, and there's themes of I like to do things the old way, and let's go back to bed. Because obviously, then we end like, which is great. I mean, it's fantastic. The gun and the radio, and the fantastic thing about that film is, I think it will probably stand as an island in Daniel Craig's
movies as like the one kind of just Bond romp, like whereas the others have all got to be
yeah,
tied
right.
together.
It's like a fun spy romp, and it's all techie and
it's
stuff.
Great.
I dug that.
It's fantastic. I mean, I love them all for all different reasons, but that is definitely. It's funny because you talk about like the thing with the other thing I had a problem with Khan in that is it's played up like it's a big reveal when he goes, "My name is." And it's like, and there's big music and everything swells, but no one in the room knows what the fuck that means, right?
Yeah, like
Captain Kirk's like, eh?
Kirk doesn't. Well, no, in the room, because like in Star Trek, Khan was like a kind of Hitler figure. He dominated most of the earth, so it's kind of like if Hitler reappeared. But
calling himself Jeff Harris or something, and then went, "My Name is Hitler. Deutschland, Deutschland."
I could get behind that.
Hitler on the moon. Sorry,
but Hitler on the moon. So my problem with that scene is that all the music and the framing plays it up to the audience.
Yeah,
and my argument is, and someone's argued with me this online before, like, and I'm sorry. Bunch of fucking 15-year-olds going out on Friday night to go see the big new Star Trek movie because they like the big, fun, sexy time travel one before. They don't know who Khan is.
Yeah.
I know, you know, like whatever, but they don't know who Khan is. So that reveal doesn't make sense. I mean, it might in Star Trek land, yeah, it makes sense because he's this kind of political figure on Earth and whatever.
It plays into, I think the way they use it in that film is though that it plays into very much the idea that all things are reversed now. So because of the sort of butterfly effect.
Don't even fucking get me going
anyway,
on that end bit.
All right.
The thing is with Khan as well, and we seem to have locked this into Joker, Silver, and Khan.
They're the main three examples, I think.
Yeah. Khan actually is a superhuman, engineered super genius, but the other two are supposed to just be like dead bright. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess so.
So why is his plan the worst? Like, out of those three, he's the one in the running to actually be borderline omnipotent compared to like normal. You know, even the best, brightest person is a knuckle dragging cretin to Khan. Right, but the other two are like super genius, but within the frame of humanity.
Yeah, sure.
Like, and he's got the worst plan.
It's true. It's funny because they repeat. They kind of do the same thing in Spectre, right? With Blofeld having, it's almost like, no, it was my plan all along, and by the way, I'm your brother as well, you know. And they do a similar thing,
which is the twist from Austin Powers 3.
Well, yeah.
I'm sorry, but it's like when I watched that, I was like, no, you didn't.
Nothing could be my father from the truth. But one thing I think they did well in that was they didn't play up to, because a lot of people compared the Blofeld reveal to the Khan reveal, right? Because he goes, you know, the whole thing was. I know why they do it.
It's fake name and.
Well, I know why they do it because in the build up to it, they have to call the character something else so that you think he's playing, but obviously he's playing that character. I think a good example of getting this, we're going off topic, but a good example of getting that right was what they did for Batman Begins, which was they called Ken Watanabe's character Ra's al Ghul in all the lead up stuff, even the toys. But then after the film had come out, they renamed the toys and stuff for Liam Neeson's character. But what they did well with the Blofeld reveal in that was they didn't make it a massive. I know it was a big deal in terms of the dialogue, but there wasn't like a bum thing about it. It was just like,
yeah, right. Whereas like, Into Darkness
doesn't mean anything to James Bond.
And when he first turns up in Spectre, it is just like, dude, that's Blofeld.
Yeah.
Which is fine because they didn't make such hay out of it. It's just like, yeah, I guess fucking Blofeld. Like, because he's
sat at the head of a table.
Head of a table in his grey suit. And you might as well have the fucking cat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Shame.
I really liked. I'm a big. I guess I'm a Spectre apologist now because I really like that film. But I get why people don't. But I thought it was really great.
I've got my issues with it technically, but I don't feel it's fair for me to talk about it because I'm not a Bond fan. So yeah,
it doesn't.
And that's a discussion for another time.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
But and I think this has been imitated on a smaller scale and kind of like cheapo shit. But it's something, if you're going to do it, it has to be so tightly written. You can't
or it has to. Yeah, I think. Yeah, you're right. I think because obviously we've identified why we think it happens, which is to give that unsettling, unnerving, like, oh my god, like no one's safe kind of feel to the protagonist and thereby the audience. I think that can work on a character level where with something like the Joker, it's like it doesn't have to make sense. It can all look like coincidence, and because you're supposed to be left with that kernel of doubt of like, is he really that much of a master strategist, or is he just lucky? you know, but it doesn't matter because for thematic and character reasons that has to, because it's about putting Batman in that horrible position, right? And won't he bend his rules? Which he does because he kills Harvey Dent. Sorry, but he does. It's like that thing gets glossed over very quickly. But anyway, but in the case of something like Silver, again, it's creating that unknown quantity, and then in that case, it is a plot device, but it's sort of done it's still an interesting way of getting the plot to where it needs to be. And I think, again, like you say, I give it a pass because it feels very much. It's interesting. It still moves the thing along, and it doesn't. Yeah, if you think about it, but it doesn't destroy the film for me. Like, I still enjoy the film. Khan, that feels very much done just for the moment to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's where I think people get it wrong. A lot of people see it as, oh yeah, we better do that because that's a cool thing to do, right? And then but if you've not got the backbone to it.
And again, when that character within the fiction of a very well poured over and established fiction is a super genius,
yeah,
you really have to lock that shit down. You can't just sort of it can't be flabby. Yeah. That's why the Into Darkness is flabby, right? And it's just like, dude, that can't be flabby. That has to be fucking precision timed for us to buy that he is what you say he is.
Yeah.
And not sort of angry Sherlock.
Well, there we go. Well, I think we've covered those two tropes quite well, and that was really fascinating. Or it wasn't, and you've gone for another biscuit.
Or poo.
Or poo. Please join us next time when we'll be discussing more tropes and quite why they are what they are, and picking them apart to a ludicrous degree and probably reaching no conclusion whatsoever. We'll see you then. Until then, goodbye.
Huzzah!